Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script,
Down the stretch they
and we
come.
are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So, Billy, we are back. We have been on sabbatical for a little while. We're here again. What do you think?
I'm back. I'm all ready for the season. I don't know what to do first. Go to the casino, go to the golf course, or go to the racetrack. But all three of those things will be in my repertoire.
We're looking at the old Welcome to Las Vegas, black and white. So we're going to be talking about the big casino. We're going to be talking about casino hosts because we've known some hosts. We've known high rollers and whales, and we're going to tell some stories about that. But I like to go back in time a little bit because Vegas has changed so much in just my 40 some odd year association with Vegas. I know you go back deeper. What are your earliest thoughts of your first trip to Vegas? Was it black and white or was it color when you went?
It was color, and it was funny because I knew that this is long before ATMs and credit lines. I was pretty young, and I went with a friend. We were going to go see a boxing match, and we stayed at the Las Vegas Hilton. And I had another friend of mine. I prepped him for this. Wire me. I guess there was a way to wire to the casino. My second day there, $50 in case I ran out of my first $50 the first day. And I saw something there, my first trip there, that is indelibly marked in my brain and is a message to everybody out there when it comes to the Las Vegas casinos. I drove past, I was in a cab. We were going from Circus back to the Las Vegas Hilton, or vice versa. I don't remember which. And there was a big neon sign in front of a diner, biscuits and gravy, 25 cents.
Wow.
And I was like, holy mackerel. But I realized, you know what, that place might be crowded.
Yeah. And that's when, and by the way, when did you ever have biscuits and gravy that wasn't good or wasn't
You
the
know,
best?
it's good, but obviously that was for the, people who had shot their wad. Like a friend of mine once said, I went to Vegas in a, $22,000 Oldsmobile, and I came back in a $240,000 Greyhound bus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is, we've done this before where you have to stuff away some money in your shoe. But you mentioned Circus, so I'm just going to say to people watching this, if you remember the movie, and we love James Bond, don't we?
yeah,
And
Joe St. John.
Sean Connery was in Diamonds Are Forever, wasn't he?
Yep, with Jimmy Dean and Jill St. John,
Jill St.
and some of that was shot at Circus. And Circus, their catch was it was literally like a circus going on above
That's
the
it.
tables.
That's it. It was
Trapeze acts. And, yeah.
It was like going in the Big Top in Madison Square Garden and having crap tables lying around on the floor.
Yep.
You could be playing a slot machine and an elephant's trunk could come over. I remember that. Now, yeah, Jill St. John in that movie. My goodness, one time she comes in meeting Mr. Franks, right? The fake,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Franks.
The fake one, right? Mr.
Yep.
Franks didn't make it that far yet.
Yeah,
And
Bond was Mr. Franks at that point. Yeah.
she came in as a blonde and she said, wait a minute, gave him the bourbon glass,
Took his
nice bourbon
fingerprints and
glass,
came out as a redhead. Yeah.
Yeah, she came out as a redhead. The gimmicks in that movie was going back into the early 70s, maybe, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Is that when you made it to Vegas?
I'm gonna say it was, yeah, early 70s. Early 70s.
So
71 maybe?
so if you went with
72.
$50, what were you planning to do with that big wad of money?
At that time, that was a big wad of money for me. I was going to play roulette. I was pretty sure if I played the right numbers, I'd win money. And that, anybody who's ever played roulette, if you don't pull the trigger and you sit there and watch the wheel and you think I would bet, I would put $1 on number five, but you don't, and the five comes up, it can be pretty frustrating. So I ended up losing my $50, but my buddy, who's still my friend, he's actually my partner in the member guest at our club, wired me the $50 emergency fund the second day. We were only going to be there 2 days, and I think it was Wilfredo Benitez was fighting that night, some kind of lightweight or light heavy, light middle or something like that. championship fight. And I never actually made it to the fight. We watched it in our rooms. Um, but I learned a lot. I got my feet wet, and I realized biscuits and gravy, 25 cents aren't far away.
You've probably built up credit in a casino. That's something I've never done on purpose. On purpose. And I remember if you didn't have a friend that could wire you the money, there was this this phone you could call up and you could get money on your
credit card.
And the interest
cash advance.
Yeah,
like 9%, 15%. Yeah.
It was big. It was big. Remember, it's the 70s, so interest rates were big back then too.
But as I got to know the city a little better, I learned some stuff. And what I eventually did, and I came on to the Desert Inn. I learned about the Desert Inn, and it was the best place of all the places I ever stayed. I became very attached to the Desert Inn because they had a golf course. It was smaller. And I read some books about one called Behind the Tables that would tell you stories that were written by dealers and croupiers and experienced Vegas guys. And I learned how to get some comps, quote unquote, the free stuff in Vegas, which costs you a fortune. So I established a credit line at the Desert Inn, which meant that I could take out markers. And for anybody who doesn't know what a marker is, it's basically a personal check. So you sign for whatever the amount of money is, and you pay it back before you leave or after you leave. But if you don't pay it back, they're going to stick it in your bank as if it's a check. And if the money's not there, you got some issues. You've just bounced a check to Las Vegas. And that's not something that's throughout history, that's something you want to do. You don't want Vegas guys chasing you for money. They're a little bit more sophisticated about it when in the years I'm talking about than they were back in the Benny Binion days, but they still come after you for that money.
And what'd you figure? You had about a week, maybe 2 weeks, if you were well known, to pay back the marker. If you were a really big whale, then you had to pay it back before you went the next time. And they figure you're every 2 weeks.
They're going to get it one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I, for the most part, there might have been one or two trips where I left town without paying it, but I usually paid it back before I left if I used it. And the only reason I really used it was for backup. Plus, it ended up, once I had that credit line established, this is the way Vegas used to think. And, I think the new casinos have a different look at all of this, but they knew that if I had access to $10,000 or $15,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is, they want me there. So it's free rooms and everything else, because they know sooner or later, if it's not this trip, it'll be the next trip. I'm going to dip into that money and they're going to end up getting it one way or the other. So that's all they wanted was to know that you had access to some cash and you were in a casino. Nature takes care of the rest, and the Vegas rules, of course, because every game in Vegas is stacked in the house's favor. Every single game. There are points in some of the games where the odds favor the player, but overall, nope.
That's right. Well, what are they giving you anyway? If they have 4,000 rooms, or let's say the Desert Inn had 500 rooms, and there were only 400 booked, they might as well give you the room. It's a good thing for them. That room evaporates the next day if it's not used. And the same thing.
The $150 that it would cost to stay there is, right down there on the blackjack table. So
the first big casino I went to was 1978 at Resorts International in Atlantic City, and it was the only casino. And it was owned by Merv Griffin, who everything he did turned to gold. And
everything.
I walked in, it was the Kentucky Derby weekend. That's the weekend we're talking about here. And we walked in, and every slot machine had 8 to 10 people deep. I'm talking about people standing behind, let's say you were playing the slot machine, 8 or 9 or 10 people were behind that person, waiting for that person to leave.
Want to make an argument for supply and demand, there it is.
Yeah, and so that was a gold mine, because in any casino, volume is what they want, because they cap each game. The only game that's kind of not capped right is craps, right? You can get a bad run at craps, right? But roulette,
you can get true odds on a craps table. So, but dice are dice.
Yeah, they'll give you 400-1 odds, and they'll give you big odds in Vegas. They won't do that everywhere, but by, let's say, your pass line bet, a lot of people put twice the money or whatever it is, and you bring your odds against you down. But if the more you put up on that odds bet, you're basically eliminating the house advantage down to almost break even.
Well, if you're going to play craps the right way, if you're going to play, the pass line, you don't make a full wager on the pass line. You wait for the point, and then you make a wager behind the pass line. Because let's say you put $100 on the pass line, the guy throws a 6, and then he makes a 6. So before he throws a 7, you win $100. But if you put 25 on the pass line, the guy throws a 6, and then you put 100 behind, and he makes his point, you're going to get the 25 there, but you're going to get I said 6, make it a 9. You're going to get 9-5 if the point's a 9 on the back line bet.
Right.
So it's kind of insane to just bet the pass line and not bet behind the line.
You can tell gamblers, and you can tell people that just want action and they don't care about their money.
Absolutely. Those guys are playing the hard ways. Yeah.
There's
craps, Yo 11 for 15-1 or whatever it is.
Oh, the obvious rookie in a casino in a craps game is they put their $50 on the pass line and they don't back it up with odds. Or I've seen this, and you've rooted for green, even though this is when I take my money off of the roulette table, because I never played green, the 0 or the double 0.
No, me neither.
Those to me were mean numbers.
Yeah.
So I'd have somebody come up and they'd put 100 on black and 100 on red. I said, hold on a second, to the dealer. I pulled my money off and I rooted like hell for one of those green to come in, because I thought they had an even money bet.
Yeah.
You don't.
And even if it was, they're not gonna win anything, no matter what. The only thing they can do there is lose.
Go have your 16th drink, because the 15th drink that you just had didn't make any.
It didn't make you pass out.
So back to the resorts. I remember, no, was it resorts? I think it was. Yeah, we went, and I remember everybody went, oh, and that was when they put an ATM machine in the casino, and it was just outside. So there's a pit, right? There's an area around the crap table, around the roulette table, and the blackjack table. Those are the pits, right?
Yeah.
We'll get into that in more detail, but there's a whole system behind the pits depending upon which game you're playing. Just outside the pit area, where you can walk around, was an ATM. Now I think they put them anywhere they want to, but I'm like, oh wow, 10 feet away is access to more money. That's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, well, now they have virtual cashiers, so you can cash tickets or get cash advances or whatever. It's literally like its own little teller.
Yeah, and they do that because they want to cut out the ATM vendor. They want to cut
plus
out
the slot machines. Slots were originally silver dollars, and then somebody figured out, why are we getting real silver dollars? We can go to tokens that are the same basic weight and size of silver dollars. And then they went to paper. So now you get a paper voucher when you win. Interestingly enough, back in the early days of Vegas, when Benny Binion is historical in Las Vegas, and it wouldn't be what it is today if not for him or someone like him. Because when he arrived there, and he came from Texas, and there's all kinds of backstories about Benny Binion, but he's the first guy that raised the limits. The mob controlled Vegas when he got there, and they had $50 limits on everything because they didn't want to get beat by anybody. And Benny raised the limit, but what he did was very smart. It was not a standard limit for anybody. You established your own limit, and your limit was whatever your first bet was. So if you bet $100 on your first bet, that was your limit. If you bet $1 million on your first bet, that was your limit, and he would take either one of those bets. Very interesting. The mob tried to stop him doing it, but they weren't tough enough for Benny Binion, so he won that fight. And there was a story about a guy who lost so much money, and he didn't have it. And the guy was a carpet salesperson. He had a carpet company. So Benny got paid in carpet. He was the first casino to have rugs put down in the casino. Everybody had sawdust on the floor back then. And this guy didn't have the 2,000 or 2,500 or whatever it was he lost. So he paid him off by carpeting the casino. It's interesting how that started.
That's a lot of carpeting back in those days.
Back in those days. And and Benny started comps. He thought everybody deserved a good drink, good food, good gamble. That was his model. All three of those things. Even the small time guys would get treated like that there. Very, very, very instrumental in the development of Vegas.
What do you think about comps? Or comps? Those are free things that, quote unquote, free things that casino gives the gamblers. Do you think that's good for the gambler, or bad for the gambler, or it doesn't matter?
I think it's good for them because there's a difference between a guy who actually deserves the comps, and those are usually pretty competent gamblers, unless they're just crazy rich guys who throw money around. And those guys are like, give me a free room and a really expensive bottle of champagne, and I don't care if I lose 100 grand. But most people today and then that understand the game would be like, I'll play a certain level, a certain amount of money, certain number of games, and I expect a room or free round of golf, or I don't want to pay for my own food. It's a fair exchange if it's not misused, but to purposely aim at getting comps is pretty silly. If your intention is to do something in order to get a free room or a free bottle of champagne, it doesn't work. It's going to cost you more than that. And the comps are never more than the losses.
But
you might
come back to that. You might come back to that when it comes to poker, which is a different thing.
Different game altogether.
Poker comps and stuff like that, you might want to push a little bit for the poker comps, because you're giving a less money away to the house. You're not playing the house in poker 99% of the money.
The poker comps,
you're playing against the competitors that you're at the table with.
Right. But the casinos gamble, their bet on the poker comps is that they're guessing, and they're usually right, that the poker player won't just play poker.
Right.
So they'll give them the free room, and they'll give them the free food or entry to a lounge, or VIP lounge, or whatever like that, because they know between the poker room and the lounge or the room, you got to get through a lot of slot machines, roulette wheels, craps tables, and blackjack tables. And most guys, poker players, are not. When they're in there, they're susceptible to those.
You ever met a poker player that didn't play on the green felt upstairs?
No.
No.
Sooner or later, they take that. Poker's a grind. So the professional poker players, even the poker players that are low-level professional players, every now and then get sick of sitting there 8 hours to win, $3,000. They'll go to the pit and play blackjack. The plumber, for instance, the guy I know at the Mohegan Sun.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. He tells a story about how he was killed at poker, bad beat. He went to his wife. He says, "Give me 10 grand," and she's like, "You're going to gamble it away." He said, "No. I just poker. I'm just going to play poker with it." So she gave him the 10 grand. He says, "I went right to the pit, right to the blackjack pit. 2 hands, boom, gone. Walking out of there. Who do I run into but my wife? She looks at me like I'm crazy. I looked at her. "That's right, honey. It's gone. All gone." She's like, so that guy can make a living playing poker, but he couldn't resist trying to get even in 1 or 2 quick shots.
Yeah. That playing at a 2-5 table, if he had an exceptional night and he played 4 or 5 or 6 hours, he might win $3 or $4 or $5,000 if he played.
And that's
he played 7 or 8 hands in 5 hours.
Right.
He played so patiently. He only waited for premium hands. Here he goes upstairs in 2 blackjack hand.
Boom.
He loses twice what he would win in a session at poker.
Right. But he was looking at it a different way. Another guy tells a story about how he was up at poker doing real well. He was going to go get a haircut, and he stopped at one of the tables. And before he knows it, he loses some money. He tries to get it back. Next thing you know, he's down thousands of dollars. It's like the most expensive haircut I ever got. I lose 200. I try and get it back. Cost me 3 grand. So,
well, one of my friends that took me to both Mohegan Sun. Well, I went with him, and so did an entourage of people. He'd never been to Mohegan Sun, and I think we all got rooms by the strength of his comp, which was his record of playing blackjack in Vegas was well known by the credit people and the casino people at Mohegan Sun, who was trying to get more of those people to come to Connecticut that lived in New York or New Jersey or whatever.
Yeah, especially when it was a new casino, because you couldn't establish a line or a history with them when it was brand new.
Precisely. So we go there, and he knows a lot about comps. And you got the best room on the top of the tower at Mohegan Sun. It's this huge villa. And he says, Bobby, I'm going to find out how big the comp is, how good the comp is. And I said, how are you going to do that? And he said, well, the butler just came by. Butler.
Yeah.
So when you're a big roller and you're playing, 6-figure sessions for blackjack, you get a
You get a
butler.
butler. Yeah.
Butler, what's the butler do? He brings over the menu.
Right.
He says, I'm going to order. Now everything in Vegas is double priced, right? If a steak at Smith Wolinski's is $100, a lesser steakhouse in Vegas, it's going to be $200.
Right.
If a bottle of Chateau Margaux at my friend's house and he buys it for $400, he said on the menu it was $800 or $900. He says,
right.
I ordered 2 of those. And I said, well, how will you know if the comp is good? He says, if they bring them. Just as we're talking about that, the butler comes in,
yep.
This butler, ding, just,
yep.
Hey, we got this, and open them up, blah, blah, blah. And so what was interesting about that gentleman, and he was a big roller for decades, best blackjack player I ever saw, best blackjack player. He didn't play, he'd throw a number down, favorite number on a roulette wheel, but never sat at any point in time there.
Right.
He played blackjack. And what he taught me, and he learned over the years, he did everything he wanted to do. So if he went to Vegas, he'd wake up in the morning and go someplace and have a great breakfast or have it brought into the room. We'd go out to Caesars golf course, Cascada, or the Mirage golf course, or the Wynn, or whatever, right? Play golf. Maybe play 36 holes. Yeah. Have lots of yucks there until the sun went down. Come back in. We'd go to the spa. We'd get a massage, a steam bath, a shower. You do everything to you so you feel good, right? Now you go to dinner. And they were treating you for dinner at the best steakhouse or Italian restaurant, whatever it was there, right?
Yep.
At 11 o'clock. Now we're going to go gamble. And he would sit down and play blackjack. I think in Mohegan Sun, if people have been there, the best restaurant at that time was Michael Jordan's. And it's still
the most expensive anyway. Yeah.
Most expensive. The quality's good there. I haven't been there in the last year or two, but back then it was pretty good. He was getting all the wine, blah, blah, blah. And we went. And son of a gun, if he didn't sit down, and he plays a 1-3-5-8 game. So 1,000 a hand, 3,000, 5-8. This time he went to 16 because he had won. What he did is he progressed. If he won at 1, he went to 3, then to 5, then to 8. And he might have stayed at 8 a couple of times, took some money off. But this time he got to 16. I think I told you the story. He got dealt a pair of 8s. And in Vegas or in Mohegan Sun, a casino, you can split those.
Right.
So he splits the first 8. He gets a 3. He doubles that.
What's the dealer got?
The dealer's showing a 5.
Yeah. Okay. So he's playing whatever he's doing. He's just playing the dealer to bust.
So he says to me when he gets an 8 and the dealer turns over his card and it's his turn to bet. He's already got one bet up there. The dumb gambler would just leave the $16,000 up there. He says, Bobby, guys like me live for this moment where we're at the top end of our progression and it's legal to put more money down and you have an edge over
and you have the edge on the house. Yep.
Long story short, he got 6 bets out there for $96,000. The best hand he had was 14, I think it was, and the dealer broke. And then
you're not playing your hand there. You're playing the dealer's.
That's it.
In blackjack, you're just assuming the down card of the dealer is a 10. You just play every hand like the dealer's got a 10 underneath.
Anybody that knows the blackjack rules, you press up when you have that opportunity, like he did. And I learned a lesson. I learned a couple things. Do everything you want to do, and then you go do your gambling at the end. He wasn't there 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So he took his money. I think he lost the next one at 16. He didn't go to 32 or anything. And he said, that's it. And he walked away with a lot of these teal, like my shirt, colored chips, which are 5,000. He had 2 racks of them. And we go to the cash him in, and the cashier said, driver's license, please. He says, what are you talking about? He says, I need your driver's license.
More than 10,000.
He says, you got to have it. And he went back and forth, back and forth. He insists on his driver's license. He says, okay, you stay here with the chips. So I had to protect us with the chips while he went back up into that tower all the way
You're
up.
in the safest place in the world.
Yeah, you're in the safest place in the world. But the whole thing there was you learned about comps and you try to turn a little bit on the Vegas or on Mohegan Sun or Connecticut. You definitely want to use those comps, but you want to do things on your own time. What he told me is that they do all these things because their real gaining factor is time. You know, when you see people, I always ask people when you play craps, play blackjack and roulette, how long? Oh, I'm there all day. There's no way. You and I know all day you're never going to win.
No,
you have
they
to
love
know
you.
when your streak is and collect. And maybe you just got back to even after you hit 5 blackjack hands in a row for 500 apiece, but you were down 2,500, right? And you came back to even. Maybe that's the best you're going to do all day long. And you've done that. You've walked away, right?
Yeah. Best blackjack player I ever saw was a guy named Gary from Detroit. And I saw him get wiped out. I mean, he had some real bad luck and he stayed. I thought of him forever, ice in his veins. I left him at probably 2 a.m. and he was down to near broke. I came back down the next morning. He was sitting at the same blackjack table. As it turns out, he was back at that blackjack table. He went bust. His credit line had run out at the Desert Inn. He went downtown where he had an old $5,000 credit line at the Golden Nugget. He said, I hit a streak. I came back here. I'm sitting there next to him. He's got $96,000 in front of him now. 96,000. And he looks at the dealer and says, I got 96,000 here. What do you think would be a good number to quit? The dealer says, well, 100,000 is a good round number. And Gary looked at him and said, it sure is, but 96 is fine. Cash me out. That was a smart guy. He had hit bottom and came back, saved himself. His profit was probably over 50 grand.
Oh,
why go for another 4,000? You go down to 92, then you're going to still chase 100? No. Get up and go.
He's a different kind of gambler too. He's the guy that could play a long session where he recognizes there's going to be 3 or 4 streaks.
Yep.
And you know,
when you hit that streak, I love poker now. I don't play the other games anymore.
Yep.
But in my life, there's really nothing like killing a roulette number.
Right.
As frequently as that or infrequently as that happens. But hitting a streak in blackjack where you're progressive betting and the dealer keeps busting and you're hitting blackjack and maybe you're playing multiple hands, that is just, nirvana for a little while. I was in Vegas at the Desert Inn years ago with a good friend, and I was playing $100 a hand table, and I had every hand at the table. And I went through nearly 2 shoes, winning, I'd say 4 or 5 hands every time. It was ridiculous. I was standing back directing the dealer like I was, a conductor. Hit it, double down. It was crazy. And then finally the pit boss came over and said, you can't play all 6 hands. I was like, why not? He says, other people are waiting to play. I said, there's nobody waiting to play. And I had a friend. I said, all right, so cash me out. And the guy goes, well, wait a minute. What we can do is we can let your friend play 3 of the hands and you play 3 of the hands. And my friend, God bless him, looked at the guy and says, I don't gamble.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And what this guy did for me was, it was great. I cashed out for a big profit. I was a little pissed off that he interrupted the game because I was having fun. But you get out of that little magnet area there, so you're not in the grasp anymore. 50 feet from the table, I was like, hey, I got a lot of money in my pocket. I'm actually grateful to the guy for breaking the game.
Did a favor.
Yeah.
He did a favor. I hit 3 numbers in a row in the only casino in New Orleans. And
on the roulette wheel?
On the roulette number.
Yeah.
I hit 18. I doubled up my bets. I hit 18. I doubled up my bets. So I had 4 times the amount of money, and I won over $1,000. And then they put a new dealer in and they said, spin it.
Yeah.
It's like what they're just trying to disrupt the karma.
Yeah, they're superstitious too. If a blackjack table was going crazy or a roulette wheel was going crazy, they'd relocate it. They'd put it in a different part of the casino.
Well, and this is when roulette wheels were more mechanical, and they did have bends, and there was a section where the dealers
kept going
games could tell you that the ball is falling in your section.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy, it's falling in your section because they were mechanical. And they'd have to have somebody come in with a plane and a level and fix it and all that. And, And so what they did to me is I covered, say, 12 or 13 bets. I'm like, I got the money on 18. And then I said, oh, I'm not going to, this is it. I'm so upset. I just put like $20 on 18 and nothing came up in my numbers. And I said, good, cash me in. So they did.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And I exactly what you said. The moment I got 6 or 7 feet away from that heater,
That pull, yeah.
I'm like, wow,
It's like
12,
a gravity pull.
$1,600, right? You know,
It's still true with me. When I leave the Mohegan Sun, for instance, with a couple thousand profit or something like that, I'm like, I really want to keep playing, but you get 3 miles away, and you're like, hey, I'm a couple grand up, and I'm out of there.
best casino story. We got a minute left. Give us your best casino story, and we'll wrap this up.
My favorite casino story. This is wild. I was out there at the Desert Inn to play golf in a sponsored event by the casino, where it's a great thing. And I ran into a guy who shot like a 73 on the course that day. His name was Tom. And I met him at the blackjack table, and I was in the third base, and the rest of the table was one guy and a bunch of girls who were celebrating their 40th birthdays. And I'm in the last seat. I'm about even. I got $1,000. I've been sitting there for 2 hours, and Tom comes down, and he says, "I wish there was a seat." I said, "Well, I'll take this money and go with you. We'll go to another table." I said, "Well, you know what I'll do? I'll bet the whole 1,000 now. Either I win or I lose the 1,000, and then I'll move on." So he says, "Well, what if you get a double down?" I said, "It doesn't matter. I'm just getting 1,000. I'm either going to have 2,000 or zero, and we'll move on." Sure enough, I get an 11. Tom's sitting next to me. He says, "What are you going to do?" He's sitting at the, sort of behind me. I said, "I'm just going to, take a hit. No double down." Then I said, "No, I'm just going to play the 1,000, So the woman can't decide whether she wants to hit or not. She's wavering back and forth. And finally she says, "Okay, hit me." So the dealer starts to hit her, and she says, "Wait," and so the dealer snaps the card back, but it flashed. I saw it. I said to Tom, "Did you see it?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It was a 10. He said, "Yeah." The woman finally decides to stay, no hit. The dealer looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, I need a $1,000 marker. I want to double this down." It it was an automatic win. It was, the only time ever in Vegas where the chance was gone. I mean, there was a risk making the $1,000 bet in the first place, but nothing's going to beat me when I have an 11 and I see a 10. It's going to be 21. I could get tied, but most likely I'm going to make double my money, which is what happened. I felt a little guilty, but I could live with it.
They're willing to let that go for the long term. But the story you've told that how many times? Hundreds or thousands?
Hundreds,
of times? Yeah. And is that in Connecticut or in Vegas or somewhere else?
That was at the Desert Inn.
Yeah.
Most of my favorite events happened at the Desert Inn. Although I did have a big night with my wife. We were on our way home, and we were on the red eye out of America West line out of Vegas. So we went and checked in at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And then we went back to the Tropicana to kill a couple hours rather than stick around at the airport. And I went on a streak there. Never before, never since have I come close to this. Strangers were kissing me. I had so much money on the 29. There was a stack probably this high on number 29 on the roulette wheel, and it hit. People were kissing me. I told my wife, "Why don't you go and I'll take a flight tomorrow because I don't want to stop this streak." She's like, "No way." I said, "Look, I'll give you all the money I want. You can take it with you." She's like, No. And she was right. And again, I got out of that magnetic pull. I kept sending her to the window to cash these black chips. I didn't know till I got home how much money I had. It was too much to count. I couldn't even fit it in my pockets. I was stuffing it in my bag. It was a great few hours, including getting 4 aces on a video poker machine with a lot of money up. So that was close to $5,000 on its own. So that was a great night. Well, it was a great town. I wish it was the same.
Well, we'll do another episode, kind of the newer Vegas or the newer casino comps and stuff like that. We're referring to a few years ago, maybe decades ago. But what people don't realize with roulette, you and I have played that at an intense level. At one point, we thought we had a system, or at one point, we thought the wheel was off kilter in our advantage, and that was mechanical, and slot machines were mechanical too, and they would tilt and they would pay off at a higher rate, and things have changed in that regard. But what people don't realize in roulette, unlike any other game, I haven't seen it, when you're hitting and you've got the 29, which is on the right side in the middle, and you've got all those chips, and let's say your chips are teal blue, right?
Yeah.
Everybody there's women with mink stoles and guys with t-shirts, and they're all going over you like this, and they're putting it on top, and things are spilling, and and that's why that tower gets so big, and that's why it's euphoric, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kissing you might have just put $1 chip there and got $35 back. Meanwhile, you got $4,279 on that.
And the whole place is rejoicing. Everybody at the table had it because they saw I was on a hot streak. So I'm serious. Strangers were kissing me, and that's happened at the craps table, and it happened that night.
10 times the amount of people wanted to be on that number, but it was 5 deep, and you couldn't get anywhere near. You really couldn't bruise anybody to get near the stack.
No, not when the tables go. I saw a craps table like that one night. In fact, I wasn't on it. I was 3 deep watching it. I offered a guy $500 for a spot. He was like, "Get the bunk out of here! Not a chance." This guy, they were calling him Sleepy. He made, it was ridiculous. He was throwing the dice for 40 minutes that I watched, and I got there during his streak. And he finally throws a 7. He's out. They pass the dice to the next guy. You can't fit another person at this table. They pass the dice to the next guy. He passed, all the way back around to Sleepy. I was, holy whatever. I never saw that before. And the guy says that's the second time we've done that with Sleepy. I was like, wow. I mean, when that happens, Vegas feels 2 ways about that. They love that because they know the crowd's going to get all into it, and the mood and everything like that. But they got hit for a lot of money that night on that table. I mean, they get it back like a dealer once said to me, "We never lose because we never run out of money."
To me, it's like the same thing with slot machines making big noises when they pay off big. They want that, and they want that crap table. They want that roulette table. They want blackjack.
They announced it over the loudspeakers. Another jackpot winner at the Mohegan Sun.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that with a hot roulette table or craps table. There's enough noise there to get.
There's going to be a cheers. Yeah,
everybody comes over to see what's going on. Like you were there, you couldn't get in.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. All right, so we'll wrap this up, but we'll promise to do another episode, maybe with the Las Vegas sign in color or Mohegan sign in color, and we'll bring some color into comps and
a little history. Some of the great places that are no longer there. The Desert Inn, for one, was an awesome place. It's now Wynn is there, which is another awesome place. But it's not. The history is gone. It's not the same place. It's not the same kind of stories. It was a different world, and it was great. But that's true with a lot of things. I played craps with Arnold Palmer at the Desert Inn. That's pretty good. He was losing. In fact, we were supposed to have dinner, and when our dinner reservation time came up, he was like, "Sorry, partner, I'm not going to dinner till I get my money back." So
thanks for joining us today.
Billy Harmon.
We really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please subscribe to the show. And hit
Claude
the bell
Harmon.
icon so you get notified.
Movie classics.
New episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them hard and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.